Okay, we are all set. We will start with understanding what is R and why we need to learn R, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of R, and also we'll try to see how to install R software and R Studio also. Okay, first of all, let's try to understand what is R. R is a programming language. It is meant for statistical computing or statistical to conduct statistical test or implementing machine learning or even the deep learning algorithms. You can use R to implement it. Unlike Python, R is meant only for statistical analysis, implementing machine learning algorithm, deep learning algorithms. So it is a free, R is a free and open source. Right, it was actually originated from a language called yes language. Okay, it was developed by John Chambers and others in the Bell Laboratories, Bell Telephone Laboratories, which is actually part of AT&T Corp. Okay, and I don't know, I don't remember which year they developed this one. They developed this language, and then this yes language, it underwent several transformations, and finally, or in other words, right, this S language evolved into R language now. So earlier, this language is, has gone down a rather winding path. Bell Labs, what they did, right? They gave an exclusive license to develop and sell this language. And finally, someone by the name of Alcatel, they purchased a Lucent Technology. They were the one using S language. They bought S language. Okay. And finally, Insightful, they what they did, they bought it from Alcatel or so, and they sold their implementation of this language under the name of S Plus, okay, and built a number of fancy features like GUIs on top of the S Plus. Okay, see, the fundamentals of the S language itself has not changed dramatically. Okay, since the publication of this one. Okay, the okay, so this is how the R software was, the R programming language was evolved. So in between, there's something called Revolution R. Okay, they made some changes to the source code of the R, and they made commercial one, and finally now they now R is available under the GNU, General Public License. Okay, and it is the pre-compiled binary versions are provided for various operating systems. Now you can run R on Linux, Windows, and Mac also. Okay, now let us try to understand what the features of R. Okay, so R has an effective data handling and storage capability. Okay, and R provides a large, coherent, and integrated collection of tools for data analysis. Okay, a lot of packages are available. The user community for R is also very high. Okay, if you have any issues while you develop any applications related to statistical software or any, we have something called yeah, I will just show you Shiny. We have something called Shiny app. Okay, you can develop the Shiny app also using R, and it is a nice interface. Okay, and also using R. See, R is meant for statistical analysis, and also using R, the graphics capabilities are very good. You can generate publication or publishing or production quality charts. You can generate it using R. Okay, and even SAS also very good for visualization. Similar to SAS, even R is also very good for visualization because it has lot of the packages are available with R. Okay, and also R is a cross platform. R is extensible. You can call R from other languages also, and you can run R in any other platform like Linux, Mac, and Windows. As I told, it provides vast number of packages, and also a lot of user communities are available. and many issues the user communities, right? You can ask them in case you get stuck with any issues during the course of developing any ETL process or implementing machine learning algorithm. If you come across any issues, you can post it. You can find the most of the solutions from the users community or user community. And also needless to say, the Stack Overflow, right? It has a lot of uh, solutions for the problems posed by many of the or and Python or on any other language you take it, right? Even if you take statistics, anything, right? You take anything, any right? You can find solutions for the problems or issues or most of the queries posted in Stack Overflow also. You can find solutions from there in case of any issues. It is very much helpful, Stack Overflow. And also R has a lot of packages available, right? Many topics, right? Repositories, especially in topics like econometrics, data mining, spatial analysis, and bioinformatics. A lot of packages are available. It simplify our job. You don't have to write lines and lines of code, since a lot of packages are available to solve most of our to solve most of our technical problem, right? Many packages are available. You don't have to write lines and lines of code. The one disadvantage with R is it is not scalable. But earlier it was not scalable. Now they made significant improvement. They introduced something. They developed some users. They contributed to R software as a they contributed a package to the R software like H2O. H2O is meant for that package is meant for in-memory processing. You can cache all the data in memory. Hence, the processing speed is very high. Supposing I'm okay to invest more to cater to my scalability requirement in terms of buying more hardwares, because my business is really doing good now, because of which a lot of users are visiting my website, and they want to do a lot of analysis, right? So in that case, I'm okay to invest more money on hardware, but still, if the software is not scalable, if my software doesn't have the scalability, if it doesn't support the scalability, then what is the point in investing more money on hardware? So that's where the S2O and all really, very much helpful. Using S2O, you can cache the data, so that the entire data, if it is available in memory, the processing time is much faster. And apart from this, now Hadoop is available. Using Hadoop, you can do distributed data processing. You can write map and reduce processes on Hadoop to tap the features of Hadoop, right? So hence you don't have to worry about the scalability issues now, right? Because of the emergence of this one, Spark and Hadoop, plus the packages, the R related pack like H2O, right? These are all pretty faster. So they overcame these kind of limitations with this, because of the advancement of the advancement, right? They are able to overcome the limitations like the scalability. Now we don't have to we don't have to face any issues related to scalability. Okay, we don't have to worry about scalability, and you know very well how to install R and RStudio. So you can go to rstudio.com, products RStudio download, right? If you go there, you can download it, and also you can download R from CRAN website. And I don't know if you are familiar with that one. And I have few guys, they are completely new one to program. In 1 second, cran.r-project.org. This is where you can go and download the R software. Supposing you want to download the Windows R, right? You click this one and then install R for the first time. When you click this one, it will download. Sorry, it will take you here, and you can download this one. This is the latest version of R 4.0.2 for Windows. When you download this, it will be like an exe file. And once the download is successful, you can double click on this exe file, and all you need to just double click. So all you need to do is keep clicking that one, next. The installation is very, very simple. before you install RStudio, you are supposed to install R first, because RStudio is the GUI or interface to write program on R. Okay, hence you need to install first R, and then you need to install RStudio. Since I already downloaded the R and RStudio, RStudio is pretty simple, same as this one. What you do, you can go here and just type it, download RStudio or something like that. Download for Windows. Here, if you scroll down, you will find the RStudio desktop free license of the RStudio desktop is available. Click download. That's it. Okay, and RStudio server is also available. You don't have to download RStudio server. You don't require the RStudio server. If you download the desktop version, that is more than sufficient. And the other commercial versions are available. We don't need it as of now. And if you use RStudio desktop, that is more than sufficient. If you download this one, it will download a .exe file. If you double click on the .exe file, it will bring up a window, installation window, and there you don't have to make any changes to it. Just go by the default settings and click next continuously. The installation will start. Once the installation gets completed successfully, then go to your start button and type RStudio, and if you look at RStudio, click open. I already opened it. You will find RStudio something like this, the GUI or IDE or interface for R is RStudio. In my case, I already installed. The installation process is very simple. But when you open the RStudio first time, you will find something like this. So you will find 4 windows here. The one is, one second. The one is the editor, the script editor. So this is the script editor. You will find 4 windows here. The window 1, window 2, window 3, window 4. The first, the left side top window, this is meant for script window. This is a script window. This is where you can write the scripts or scripts. And this is what your console. This is what your console. This is kind of your calculator. Okay, you can, if you want to do any arithmetic operation, you can do it here, or you can, if you want to check or if you want to perform any operation, you can do it. But if you want to write, or if you want to execute the bunch of if you want to execute a specific code snippet, then you will have to write it in the editor, script editor. Okay, so this is console, this is the script editor, this is where you write the script. And on the right side, you will find this window. This window, you can see there is something called environment tab, history tab, connections and tutorial. The environment tab, this one, right? In this tab, you can find the data, the variables, functions, whatever you have used previously, which got cached in the memory. It will show that one here. Next one is history, which all commands that you have used it, right? So it shows here. And if you want to move these commands, for example, if I want to move this to my console, which is nothing but this one, if I click this one, it will get, this script will get moved to this one, and or this this command will get moved. If I want to move it to my script window to source, look here, this statement, this line of code got moved on the script window. If you want to move to command console, you have 2 console options available. Basically, the history, whatever the commands that you used it previously, that is available here. You don't have to retype the commands again and again, right? Whatever the script or commands that you typed it in the past, if you wanted to reuse it just like that, you don't want to type it, you just come here and click it, that's all. And next one is connections. Connections, suppose you want to publish it to somewhere, right? Some other website or something like that, right? You can use connections. And this is tutorial. This is R related commands, everything is, you can just check it out there. So the next window is this one. Here you will find in this window we see 5 tabs. Here in the files you can find all the files, the operating system files, you can see it here. And we have something called plot tab. If you plot any chart, you can find it here only. Any histogram, box plot, whatever the charts that you plotted, you can see it in this tab only. The next one is packages. The packages, this lets you to see what are the packages that got pre-installed when you install, while you were installing our software, right? That packages, it will show it here. And then help. So this is where you can find or related help, okay? And viewer is for a different purpose, I'll tell you later. Okay, at this moment just look at what is the packages, right? Packages are nothing but, very well, packages are nothing but the collection of functions, and also it can have classes, methods, functions, and data set, everything, right? It is a collection of everything, the packages. And these are the packages already installed, but this is the latest release of the same packages that are available. If you wanted to upgrade this one, see, this package got installed. Now recently, someone they made some changes to this package and they released it. If you wanted to upgrade this package to the recent one, still install updates. Click install updates. Supposing you want to install a packages which is completely external to R, so you can go to tools and you have something called install packages. This is where, for example, ggplot will not be available. If you type here ggplot2, click install, it will get installed, ggplot2. Okay, so these are the pre-installed packages. At the time of installing R, these packages will be made available as part of the installation. If you want to install anything new, right, go to install package. But supposing you want to install few packages, let's say more than one package you want to install it, you don't have to install it manually by clicking this one by one, right? You don't have to install it. What you do, install package. You have something called install dot packages, right? Install packages, and here something like I give some argument, and here what I do is pkg is equal to c function. Here what I do, ggplot2, and other packages like a cluster, right? So all I list out all the packages here and assign it a variable. This variable, if I pass it as an argument to this one, all the each and every package will get installed one after another. We don't have to manually go to tools and click install. You don't have to do this one. Especially this is useful when you do production migration, the install packages and all. Okay, all the packages as a developer we need to list down into and list down in a vector, and then assign it and pass that vector as an argument to install.packages. Behind the scene it will get installed. Okay, fine. So hope you understood the interface, right? In RStudio, this is where we'll be writing the script, and the console, you can see the output of the scripts, whatever you write it. When you execute these scripts, if you want to see the output, you can find it in the console. And the next one is environment. What are the variables that got cached in the memory, the data set, everything. You can see it here, and also you can see what are the packages that we installed, what are the files are there, everything you can see it here. Okay. The next one is, we will jump into we'll start with understanding some basic commands. Get working directory. We'll start with the get working directory. I just want to check my RStudio is currently pointing to which directory. Look here, I could see C users admin documents. This is where my RStudio is currently pointing it to this folder, right? And now what I'm doing is, right, for convenience sake, instead of keeping the console here, I want to keep it alongside of this script window. I go to view, and go to panes and console on right. It is very easier to refer. I am going to minimize this one also because we are not going to check this frequently. Rarely we use that one, and I'm going to keep the console here. Fine. So if I click this one and if I click run, you can find the output in the console here. Okay, and here let's say I want to set the current working directory as my D directory also. Okay, set working directory or something called set working directory, and that one I'm going to say that one. This is the folder. I'm going to override the default folder location where the RStudio is currently pointing it to. So now I'm going to recheck whether the directory, whether the directory got reset. Yes. Now the RStudio is pointing to a new directory called d:1. So now you understood what is set working directory and get working directory, and what is the equivalent command in Python. Deepak, you can tell me, right? What is the equivalent command in Python? Import OS. You have a package called import OS, wherein what you do is OS dot. But in Python, you need to prefix the package name OS dot and get current working directory. Right? This is the function you are supposed to use it. And set working directory, set WD, I think so. Yeah. So I need to use this one. Get current working directory. Fine. So this is how we can check the folder where the RStudio is pointing it to currently. Next one is packages. You know packages, right? We are all familiar with packages. In Python also we discussed about packages. In Python we use import command. Using import we imported the packages, whereas in the case of OR we use library function. Library. Suppose I want to import a package. I have something called library. Core package is available. CAR. I'm going to import this, and also I have something called caret package. If you want to import that library, the one beauty of the RStudio is it provides the code completion facility like other popular interfaces like PyCharm and even Jupyter Notebook and IntelliJ, right? IntelliJ, and we have Eclipse, right? Like those IDEs, here also it provides the code completion facility. You don't have to type the enter command. If you just type a few letters, it automatically gives us the list of commands. Okay, the relevant commands which starts with the letters whatever you typed it. And next what we will do is we will start understanding the data types in OR. You have numeric, integer, character and logical, like other programming languages, right? Here also the same data types are available, but instead of saying string, in OR we call string as character data type. Instead of saying float, in OR we call that as a numeric data type. Okay, so that is how the data types are named here in OR. And date time, for that we use some packages, but still you don't have to use packages here also. Okay, so right, the base OR related function itself is helpful in some cases to deal with the date related commands. Okay, and what else? Yeah, so in the data types you have these are the apart from this we have something called complex data type is there, right? So integer, numeric, complex data type. Complex data type we discussed in Python itself, right? The complex data type has both the real as well as the imaginary part, and logical will take the binary values, true or false, when it comes to or, true or false supposed to be specified in caps letter. True is the entire letters, right? Entire true is in caps letter, and entire false is also in caps letter. Instead of specifying true or false, we can use T or F. We can use that way also, right? We can use that way also, and now we will see how to how to work with these data types. Right, so this is something like, right, Robert. If you suppose if you want to specify a string data type or character data type, it should be surrounded by either double quote. It should be either double quote or single quote. But if you use double quote, if you start the double quote, you need to end with double quote. If you start with single quote, you need to end with single quote. Same as Python. Say, right, if you wanted to convert a numeric or float data into string data type, you can say all you need to just specify the value surrounded by the quotes. So numeric is float data type, okay, in or, and logical data type also we discussed, right? Logical data, the value for the logical data type is true or false, and the integer is a little bit different here in the integer, and also we have some raw data type, okay, raw data type. You can convert a character to raw using a functional char to raw function. There is a char to raw function is available. You can convert the character to raw data type, okay. And next one is complex data type, okay. I'll just show you. Let's start with let's start working with the data types, okay. Supposing I'm going to assign the value 10 to a variable x, right, to a variable x. What is a variable? Variable is an object. It is used to store information. It takes any value. It takes character or date, or it can take any type of any data type as a value, right? Any data type values it can take it. Once you store the value in a variable, as the name suggests, you can modify the values in a variable. And using variable makes it easier to reference information in a program. If I have, let's say I'm using 10 different variables, in that case it will be very much helpful, right, which value is stored in which variable, to refer the values. The variables are very much helpful, and also the variables, the data are stored in memory, like you studied in C and other languages, right? The data are stored in memory. The variables are helpful in terms of reference those values in the memory. So, and these are the rules for defining a variable. A variable name can contain numeric and alphabets along with special characters like dot and underline or underscore. Right. And if the variable name begins with a dot symbol, it should not be followed by a numeric digit, or it should not be started with number digit. Supposing I want to specify the variable name is 9 test, number, you're not supposed to define a variable which starts with the number value, okay. This is against the rule, you are not supposed to use it. Otherwise, right, apart from this, the rest of them are all same. And also, let's say you can create a variable with the dot, the initial the initial value for the variable you can specify, sorry, the variable name can start with dot also, but the dot should not followed by any number, it will throw an error. So these are usually we don't follow this kind of naming convention. Based on the naming convention given by the customers in the document, we used to follow that one. But still, if you are aware of this one, it is good. Let's start with the data type, okay, and we'll start work with the data type. So the equal sign is the assignment operator, but when it comes to OR, apart from the equal sign, they use less than followed by hyphen to store the value in the variable. So conventionally we use equal sign. The equal sign served as an assignment operator in most of the languages, but when it comes to OR, you can use either equal sign or less than hyphen. Okay, and I'm going to execute this one, and I just print x. Sorry, x equal to 12, and look here, I just in the console I just typed x to check what value is stored in the variable x, and now I sorry, here not type, and here is something called class. There is some method called class. When you pass the variable x to the class, it will show you the data type, numeric. It shows the numeric. What is numeric? Numeric is the float data type. Look here, integer will, integer data type is meant for the whole number. The numeric will have the decimal values in it. It is nothing but the double or float data type. By default in OR, if you store any numeric value to a variable, OR assigns numeric data type. We can see it from here in this, with this example. All I did was I just stored 12 to a variable x, but by default OR assign the data type as numeric. Okay, now the question is, so this is a whole number. How come how can I tell OR to consider this as an integer data type? You need to suffix this number value followed by L, like in Scala. Okay, and here x. I'm going to execute this one. See, in Scala we use L for storing the long data type. Okay, but here to specify the integer data type, right, we need to specify L as a suffix to the number value. Okay, let me just type the data type of this one. If I print it, I can see integer. Look here. So this x, this value 12. Earlier we stored it in a variable x, and when we check the data type of this variable x, numeric, it was showing numeric. I don't, since it's being a whole number, I don't want, or integer, I don't want this to be assigned as a numeric data type. The OR interpreter by default assigns float data type, is nothing but numeric. Okay, so this is how you can override the default behavior of OR interpreter, okay, by suffixing L or the number followed by L. It will become the integer data type. The other way of specifying, see, in this case it is fine, right? In this case I just assigned only one value. If I want to assign more than one value, let's say I have 100 integer values are there, I cannot suffix each and every integer value by L, or I don't have to write a for loop to suffix each and every integer value by L. It will take an additional process. Instead of something called as dot integer, supposing I am using another variable called a is 10, okay, or a is 11, and if I check the data type, obviously it will be a number data type. What I'm going to do is I'm going to convert that as an integer. There is a function called as dot integer, a, and then class of a. Look here. So here the a was numeric data type, and I explicitly converted this numeric, which is nothing but the float data type, into integer using as dot integer function. Right. So this is how we can specify it. And next one is the numeric data type. For example, n is equal to 10.54, class of n. This is the numeric data type. Yes, since I have decimal in my numeric quantitative value or numeric data, right, in numeric value, then if it shows numeric, it makes sense. Numeric is nothing but the float. Okay, and the next one is the logical data type. Look here, logical data type, and instead of this, right, you can use T. Instead of specifying true, you can use T. For false, you specify F, capital F. Look here, you don't have to type the entire word true. Okay, instead you just specify T or F. And the next one is the complex data type. You will see what is complex data type. In the case of complex data type, for example, C is equal to 12 plus 11 or 2j. Oh no, in OR I guess it is I, imaginary part. I stands for imaginary. In Python it was J, right? Look here, this is complex data type. Supposing I create another complex data type, something like 14 plus 3i and the class of D, and finally if I print, okay, let's go step by step, we'll see. Look here, it's all complex data type. The complex data type has the combination of both real and imaginary value. And if I do some kind of arithmetic operation, for example, print C plus D, the real and real value will get added and the imaginary and imaginary value will get added here. So look here, that is what is happening. 14 plus 12 is 26 and 2i plus 3i is 5i. This is called your complex data type. And also we can use the date data type. Okay, the date data type, we will see it little later, right? There's something called date function, right? So date function is available. Look here, using date function, it gives us what is the day and month and the date, and then hour, minute, second, and year. Okay, so we can we can check the data. It's something like sys.date in Python, right? It's capital S, right? The sys.date, the date function, right? So that is what we used it to check it, the date function. Okay, and what are the other objects? And complex we discussed it, right? And next what we will do is we will we'll jump into this one. Okay, let me do one thing, and okay, we'll start with something called vector. Okay, logical date time and character data type. Oh yeah, character data type, how to store character. So this is the character data type. Okay, and how do I concatenate the two strings? Your function called paste, using which you can specify, but here you can specify some space here. So this is the, okay, sorry, I need to use, I should have mentioned it in print, because I use many variable in between. It's a character data type, and hello world. If you want to concatenate, you need to use paste. And also we have something called cat function is available. Okay, cat and a1 comma a2. Apart from these two things, we have something cat function using which also hello world. Okay, you can concatenate these two strings. Right, and what are the other things? Yeah, next we will see how to create a vector, how to store more than one value. Using a variable, we can store only one value. It can be, this variable can take any data type. It can be a string or complex data type, or any type of data you can store it in a variable, but you can store it only one value in a variable at a time. So here, the next, to store more than one value, we use something called vectors. Vectors. I am going to use the x and c function. We are supposed to use something called c function, using which we can define the vector. We can store more than one value. For example, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, and print x, print class of x. It is a numeric data type. By default, as I said, even though the vector x is an integer data type, or by default assign numeric data type. And class of x, yes, look here, print of x, it displays all these values, 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, and then we can create similarly, we can create, or this vector is also one-dimensional array. It is like a one-dimensional array. You can store only one data type at a time, right? You cannot, you cannot assign multiple data type. It is a homogeneous one. It is a homogeneous data type. Now, if I wanted to store, for example, instead of giving x for everything, I'll give, this is the logical vector, since it holds all the logical values. Or else I can specify t comma f. This is a logical data type, and you can convert this one as a integer data type using as dot integer. Okay, we have a function called as dot integer. Or is also case sensitive. Okay, you need to be a bit cautious. Look here, the code completion facility is helpful. We don't have to type the entire command. Look here, the entire value stored in this vector got converted as an integer data type. And similarly, you can create a complex vector like this, right? C of something like that, like 1 plus 0i comma 3 plus 2i. This is complex vector. So you might be wondering, why can't we store multiple data type in a vector? As I told you, it is one-dimensional array. You know very well, in array we can store only one single data type. We cannot combine multiple data type. You cannot store multiple data type in an array. The same idea is applicable here also. But you might be wondering, when you create, when you try to create something like this, for example, 2 comma 4.33 32 comma true comma Rajesh. Even though you you specify multiple data type in a vector, the string data type, the character data type always takes the higher precedence. It will convert all the other data types into string data type. To check that, you just type D and press enter. Look here, all the values, because this is common in all the languages, isn't it? All the data types, all the other data types got converted as a string data type. Supposing if I remove the string data type, which one will take higher priority? The numeric data type. If I remove this integer and the least one is true, to check that, what we will do is, I'm going to remove this one. Look here, now all these values get converted as numeric data type, but the true will get converted as a 1. Okay, let me just check here D here. Look here, this entire data type, right, entire the vector values got converted as a numeric data type. Though you have logical value here, it got converted as numeric data type. The true, behind the scene, it assigns 1 for true. In case of false, it assigns, this is the basic thing, foundation we learned in other languages also. The same thing is applicable here also. If it is false, and if you type D and C, false is 0. Look here, false, it converts false in numeric value as 0, and true, it converts that as a 1. And this one 4.32, but everything else, right, everything else apart from 4.32 got converted as numeric data type, float data type. Supposing I remove the float data type, so I left with only true or false. The integer takes higher precedence now. Okay, here also numeric, right? Yeah. No. What we will do is, I'm going to assign L here. Integer. Look here, integer. When I combine integer and logical values, it convert everything as a integer data type. And if you try to check the values, right, now 2, 1, 0. So 1 is the true and this 0 represents false here. Though I store heterogeneous data types in a single vector, based on the order of precedence, all the other values will, and the entire value will get changed. And end of the day, a vector can have only one data type, will have only one data type. That's what we have seen here. Okay, the next one is, so what we will do is how to initialize a vector. Okay, for example, I'm going simple one, right? So you can, for example, I have something like vector. There is a function called vector, and I'm going to say it's a numeric data type. Inside of this, you can specify the data type, comma length is equal to 5. If you say 5, it will initialize this vector C as a vector, and it will have 5 zeros in it. By default, it will have 5 zeros in it. And how to convert the data type also we discussed. In the case of the numeric value, if you want to convert as an integer, as dot integer, and vice versa, if you want to convert the integer to numeric data type, as dot numeric, and if you want to convert the integer values into logical value, as dot logical, as dot character, as dot numeric. The coercion, if you want to perform any explicit coercion, the type conversion, you can use this function, as dot numeric, as dot logical, as dot complex, something like that. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. So using list, we can mix the data types. Okay, different data types, you can mix the objects with different data types using list. And what else is there? Yeah, sometimes they call scalar. Scalar is nothing but assigning a single value to a variable. Okay, that is what scalar is all about. Arithmetic operators, it is common as other arithmetic operators. Okay, if you want to perform any arithmetic operation, supposing in this case I'll execute this one again. Look at this integer data type. If I want to multiply each and every value of the vector by 2, it is possible. That is the beauty of OR. But if I want to do the same thing in Python, see, Python, we can store more than one value either in a list or in a tuple. Since you all are already attended the Python session, and Deepak, you are already familiar with Python some extent, right? We'll work side by side. Yeah, especially we need to check this one. You know most of the comments, but here, for example, I just create here we use type function, right, to check the data type. If I execute this as a tuple and c into 2, if I give, will it work? No, it is not multiplying each and every element, right? The value 2 is not multiplied by each and every element in this tuple. Instead, it is taking the duplicate, generates the duplicate values, right? It generates the duplicate. 2 times it replicates the same values. Arithmetic operation is not possible directly with tuple and list in Python. One second, let me just go back to OR. What happened to OR? But in OR, the vector, you can simply perform any arithmetic. Look here, x into 2. When I executed this one, each and every element of this vector got multiplied by this scalar value 2. Since 2 is a single value, I call it a scalar value. So 2 into 2 is 4, 2 into 4 is 8. It's good. So now you understood. With vector, we can perform any kind of arithmetic operation. But when it comes to Python, only with matrix and matrices and arrays only you were able to perform arithmetic operation. But with vector itself, you can perform arithmetic operation. One drawback with this is you cannot store multiple data type in a list, in vector. All right, fine. The next one is, we will see what is various types of operators, like the logical operator and arithmetic operator, relational operator, assignment operator, right? Miscellaneous operators. So what I will do is I'll update it on my PowerPoint, all those things. You can use that. See, arithmetic operators, if you want to perform arithmetic operation, we use plus operator, subtraction minus, multiplication we use star, and if I want to do some kind of modulo, right? If I want to find out the modulus, supposing I have, let's say I'm going to create something called x1. See, the less than hyphen, if you ask me, this is mandatory, it is not mandatory. But when you look at most of the OR developer script, you will find this one, less than hyphen. They would have used this one as an assignment operator. And I am going to use 4, 3, 2. Supposing I want to check the remainder of the first vector. I have two vector here, and x1 percentage, double percentage you are supposed to use it. It gives me the what value it gives? It gives the remainder of the first vector with the second one, right? That is what we can see, a double percentage. And let's say if I want to divide something like that, right? So the division operation, supposing I want to divide x1 divided by t, the normal thing, right? In other programming languages also we use the same thing. A relational operator, we know, less than, not equal to, equal sign, double equal sign you are supposed to use, right? Not equal to, this one we use, this one, not equal to, right? Not equal to. A logical operator, and the and, ampersand for and pipe is for or, right? So they are the same thing, okay, nothing much different. And we have something called double ampersand. What is double ampersand? When we are supposed to use it? Logical AND operator, right? That is a logical AND operator. That is called your logical AND operator. Right? So what I will do is I will just show you with the same example. Okay, I will take the same thing here, x1. So I'm going to use some logical value here. Instead of 5.5, I'm going to use true here, t. Okay, and here I'm going to, instead of 3, I'm going to use t here. See here, print x1 double ampersand t. True, right? So what does it say here? Right, it takes first element of both the vectors and gives the true only if both are true, right? So 2 and 4, right? Both of them are true only, right? So and then next one is true. Sorry, only one, right? 2 t is there, true. Supposing I have 4 here. Yeah, in this case also it gives true only, right? It takes first element of both the vectors and gives the true only if both are true, right? Only if both are true, right? So now both are true. So in that case, double ampersand you are supposed to use it. And logical OR operator, double pipe. I think, right, you must have used all these things in the other languages. It's similar to other languages, okay? And you have something called, right, to check the existence check. If you want to if you want to check whether a specific value is available in another, let's say you have two variables and you want to, or two vectors, right? If you want to check the value in one vector is available in another vector, we use something called in operator, right? In operator. Supposing I have something called c1 or c1 10, right? This variable is 10 and c2 is 20. And what I'm going to do is I have something called t is 1:10. What is 1:10? It is a sequence number. Supposing, right, 1:10, if I specify 1 to 10, it will generate the value. It is something like a range function in or you have something like sequence function itself, 1 comma seq 1 comma 10. If you specify it, it will generate the values starting from 1 to 10, right? Instead of using sequence function directly, you can specify the range of values by using the colon here, right? Start value colon the end value. If you specify it, it will work. Now let us understand the percentage in percentage, right? This is basically we check, right, this operator, we use it to identify if an element belong to a vector or not, okay? For example, print and c1 percentage in percentage, sorry, I'm going to check it in t. If this value 10 is available in this one, okay, let me do one thing here. I'm going to say 7. It is true, right? Why it is not giving, let me just check, t is 10, right? But here if I specify 10 here, Yeah, even in this case, earlier we were posing some issue, right? C1 and T. Maybe I did not execute this T1, C1 earlier, right? Because of which I executed this earlier. 1 second, false. C1 and 1 to 10, yes, C1. Yes, I did not execute C1 earlier. Okay, in that case, it should have given me an error, something like, or maybe other C1 I used it here. Okay, so now I executed all these things. How to check the existence check whether this value is available in other vector, right? So we can use percentage and percentage. These are the things are you are supposed to be aware. And these are the logical operator and arithmetic operator, relational operators. Relational operators are greater than, less than, right? So that is what we learned during college time itself. If you are a college, right, if you are a computer science student, you would have learned during the college time itself. And list, next we will jump into understanding how to define a list in R. Same as Python, L is equal to list, but here you need to use list function. Okay, list function here 2, 4, 6, 8. In Scale also the same thing. Okay, in Spark is written in scalar language, right? It is something there they call it list vector, something like that. Here let us check the data type of this one. But the advantage of list is you can store heterogeneous data type in a list, like Python. So in list I stored 4 values. You can store the combination of character, complex, all the mix of data types. You can store it in a list. And L1 I am going to create another list, right? So here 4, 6, 8. And what I do is, if I perform arithmetic operation, okay, let us do one thing. Let us specify the length of these both the list values, same as same. Okay, and then if I perform L plus L1, it throws an error. Non-numeric argument to binary operator. You cannot perform any arithmetic operation. Supposing I want to multiply a scalar value with a list, that is also not possible, but it is possible with the vector. When it comes to list, it is not possible. It is throwing an error. Fine. So this is the one. But using vectors, we can perform all kind of arithmetic operation, and arrays and matrix as usual. We can perform any kind of arithmetic operation. And here, if I wanted to access the values of the list, in the case of R, all the index values are starting from 1 only. No 0 here. No confusion. Look here. 2, 1:3, the range of values starting from 1 to 3. Here there is no rule like the index value is supposed to be start with 0 and n minus 1. That confusion and all is not there. Pretty straightforward. 1, 2, 3, 2, 4, 6. Right? This is far better. This is how you can slice the values from a list. And supposing you are using L3, a list of, or let's say I'm going to use a vector of, I'm going to combine 2 lists using a vector, and we will see what is happening now. The C function is meant for vector, isn't it? List, still it shows a list. Right? Though you use a vector and combine the list, this is a tricky one. Okay, anybody tend to think this is going to be a vector. It is not a vector, it is a list data type only. Okay, now let us view the content of L3. Look here. So 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 4, 6, 8, 2. But instead of doing this, if I specify something like the L4 is equal to list of L comma L1 and L4, but in this case it is slightly different, isn't it? This is also a list, but this is also a list. When I use a vector function to combine the list, it stores the values like this contiguously. It stores each and every value of each list contiguously. It makes us to think, these two list values are single list. But here, look here, like Python, it stores the first list as separate one and second list as separate one. And if I want to access the value of 6 from this list, right? So, but one beauty of OR is, if I combine more than one list using the list function, it gives you the index value also here. That is the beauty of OR here. You don't have to break your head here. Supposing I want to access this, this 8 here, right? And you need to come here and you can check 8 here and just copy paste it. That's all. Okay, rate. Right, it accesses the second list and third element. Okay, second list, third element. The index values are available as part of the list itself. When you view the list, when you print the list, you can see the index values also for each and every value. That way accessing them are very easier. And if I wanted to delete any value, how do I delete a value from a list? Supposing, right, I want to, if I assign null, all you need to just assign null to delete a value. This 8 will get removed. And if you view L4 here, only 1 8 will be there. Look here. This 8 got removed. How to remove an element from a list? Using null. But in Python, how do we remove a value from a list? Supposing you have L is equivalent to square bracket 2 comma 4 comma 6 comma 8, and here if you type, we don't need to type L and all. L of, supposing I want to remove 2 from here, right? So how do I use this one? Can I use del here? Yes. Using del, you can remove the specific value from a list. And if you want to remove the list itself, you can use del function. Del. The list itself gone. L is not defined because we deleted the list. When it comes to OR, there is no del command is available. Instead, you need to assign null. All the values, all the letters are supposed to be in caps letter. Null states nothing. Okay, if you assign null to a specific element, it will become nothing. Okay, it will get removed. And next one is how to delete a value, how to assign a value to a list. Okay, now L4 of, okay, let me do one thing. I'm going to take the same thing and see if I assign any value, will it works? Because this index value itself is not available. Since I specify the new index value, it includes this one as part of this existing list. 4 6 8, sorry, it is 2 4 6 8, sorry, here 4 6 2 supposed to be there. Since we removed the 8 already, at present after removing the 8, this location has the value 2, right? Hence it has overwritten this value 2. Okay, and if I want to include any new value in a list, in OR, I don't, in Python we have something called append function, right? But in OR, how to include a value in a list, I don't remember it. So let us see L4. Yeah, best way of doing is you can see, along with this one, the list of L1, right, you can specify the this one also, the you can combine the list and the vector also, 5 comma 6. But if I don't have the vector here, right, so in that case how you can do is L4, let us give something 2 comma 4. But if I specify something new one, let me see here, if I specify anything here. These are the data structures, okay, and I covered so far vector, everything, list. To access a specific number, list slicing, everything is fine. And list, if I wanted to include any value, append is available. Yeah, good. Or something will append. Like Python, here also the append function is available, but it is slightly different. Here, yeah, append of the existing one. Okay, append of existing one. What I can do is L4 is equivalent to append of the L4 comma, let's say 2. If I want to include 2 here and print L4, look here, so 46222 and the new value 2 got included as part of L4. And also you have something called specific place. I want to insert the Shiva after one, right, after the first element. If I want to include any value, you have something called after parameters available. By specifying the index value also, right, it will include the new value as per your need, okay. And also we can assign the metadata to your existing vector or list also, likewise, like this, okay. For example, in this case, list, instead of specifying the vector comma 2 vectors, in this case 2 vectors, one is the character vector, other one is numeric integer vector. And in this case, instead of combining these two vectors, I assign some meaningful name to it. First name is equivalent to this one and age is equivalent to this one. If I print G, it displays all the values along with the metadata. This is nothing but metadata, dollar first name, dollar age, right, it prints it. And if you want to access only the first name, G dollar first name, if you give, you can view all the name. You don't have to use the index values, right. If you want to see all the first name, if you want to see all the age, right, you can specify the column name, kind of column name, you can specify it here. And if you want to access the specific person name from this column, first name 3, if you give, it will give you this one. For this, better you can do G square bracket 3, you can access it. But this is the one makes more sense. It is very helpful and easy to remember, especially when you have multiple values in your list. This is the very easier way to remember it. And similarly, in the case of vector, I have created a vector, and if I want to assign some meaningful name, for example, so names of n, it gives you the metadata for each and every value. What is metadata? Data about data. So I need to know who these people are, right? Are they students or are they customers? Something like that. Here what I do is I just specify something like here, okay, instead of this one, right, what I will do is first name and first name, last name. Yeah, I can give all the, yeah, what I can do is names of n, okay. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say C of is my student, Mahesh is my let's customer, something like that, customer, and let's say Bhupati is manager, something like that. If I type n here, names of n, I mentioned names of n, that means give some name to the vector n. So assign this student to this data Rajesh. So we are adding some context to each and every value. That is what metadata, data about data, right? So this data is about this data. So student is Rajesh is student, Mahesh is customer. This is how you can add metadata to a vector. That is what I mentioned it here. And yeah, list here in R we don't have the what is that, the dictionary and tuple, this type of data set, these type of data structures are not available. We have only this one is available, the list. So for whatever we discussed, right, that is what. Apart from this we have array. Array is also very simple one. Array is what we will do, you'll start work with arrays. Arrays are n dimensional, matrix are two dimensional, right? Array is a structure that contains data of same data type. Yes, whether the string or characters or integers. Arrays can be multi-dimensional as well, so the data can be contain multiple rows and columns. Look here, in this case I used a vector and test data, right? Dim equal to c3 comma 4 dimension. If I specify the dimension, based on the dimension whatever I mentioned, the values will be, the array will get created. In this case 3 rows and 4 columns, 1 2 3 4, right? You can use a vector to create this one to create an array. Like we will create one simple array. Suppose v1, I create two vectors and c of 5 comma 4 comma 3, and v2 c of 10 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5, something like that. Okay, and I'm going to create how much here, so I'm going to create the array, okay, the AR1, something like that, array. So in NumPy we prefix with package, right, name, right, np dot array, but here you don't have to specify like that. Okay, v1 comma v2, pretty straightforward. Comma the dim dimension is equal to c of how many values are there here, 4 is there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include somewhere values here. 3 4 5 6 plus 9, right? So 3 comma, okay, here what I will do is I'm going to reduce 1 here, 9, right? So 3 6 7 9. So what we can do is 3 cross 3, we can create 3 cross 3, or else what I'm going to do is here I'm going to specify dim of, let's say 3 cross 3, right? First we'll start with this one and we'll see the multi-dimensional part. Five 4 3 and 5 4 3 and 10 3 4 and 5 6 8, 3 cross 3. And what I'm going to do is the next one is now you tell me what is happening here. 5 4 3 10 3 4 and 5 6 8, 5 4 3 10 3 4 5 6 8 5 4 3, right? 3 times these values got repeated, right? 3 cross 2. Here what is happening here? 3 dimensional, right? 3 dimensional, and each dimension you have 3 comma 3, right? Yeah, 3 comma 3. Sorry, here AR1, right? Yeah, we are supposed to look at this one, and here 3 comma 3 2 times, right? 3 comma 3 2 times we displayed it. Supposing I have, let's 18 values, right? If I have 18 values, let us see what happens here. If I create this one, five, 4, 3 and 5, 6, 7, right? The first vector, and then 10, 3, 4. Remaining values are coming like 5, 6, 8, 1, 4, 5 and 6, 7, 8, right? It is pakka here. So 3 cross 3, 2 times it prints, right? So 2 dimensional, right? So multi-dimensional, that is what this is called, your multi-dimensional. And also if you want to, let's say I'm going to create another, we will do one thing, we'll 3 cross 3, right? 2 cross 3, we will use 2 cross 3, a or array of v1 comma dim is equal to c of how much is this? 6. How many values are 6, right? 2 cross 3. This one I'll store it in something called a1. Okay, and next one, in the case of a2, also I'm going to store the same thing. And if I perform a1 plus a2 arithmetic operation, it works. Like in Python, this is what we use. If you want to perform any arithmetic operation, it is possible. Look here, in this case I took a1 alone. In a1 I have the 5, 4, 3, 5, 6, 7. If you know, each element in this array has to be multiplied by 2, right? So 2 into 5, 10, 2 into 4, 8, 2 into 3 is 6, right? The arithmetic operation. And then the same array with same array value, if I add it, it's same as this one, right? It is the same as this one. Arithmetic operation is possible with array. Okay, and accessing the array elements next, right? It is very same thing, right? So how do I access the values of arrays? For example, AR1 of let's 1 comma 2. Incorrect number of dimensions. See, 1, look here. So 1 is the row, right? 1 and then second column, 1 comma 2, right? A1 of 1 comma 5. Okay, you can specify like this. If you specify, first we'll go like this. If I specify 2 alone, what will happen? Second AR1 is this one, right? Let me do one thing. AR1, first let me check if AR1 is there. Okay, what we will do is okay, I created it here, that's the problem. This has gone in this A1, right? So A1, 5, 3 comma 3 comma 7. If I specify A1 comma 2, 3 comma 5, the second column alone, if you want to slice it, you can see here itself. The beauty of OR is here itself it gives us the index values. Supposing you want to access 1 comma 2, 3, first row, the second column, first row, the first value of the second column. It's very easier one, because the index values are given along with the values here, not like Python, right? In Python we have to find out and you have to give the index values, but here the index values are specified along with the data, hence our job is very easier. And again, you can modify the values in an array For example, a1 1 comma 2 is equal to triple 2. It is possible if you display a1, yeah, you can modify and you can assign null, delete value, right? You can modify, delete, and right, you can perform any kind of arithmetic operation with array. And matrix command same as that one here. Yeah, but here n row n call, but you don't have to specify n row or n call. N call, though the n row and n call is a keyword, you don't have to specify it explicitly also. Okay, matrices are very simple. I put the output also in my PowerPoint. Okay, and you can perform arithmetic operation between matrix and array, provided that both array and matrix should have the similar dimension. If the dimensions are different, non-conformable arrays. Okay, same as Python. Whatever we discuss in Python, the same thing is applicable here. Okay, but the difference between the array and matrix is two-dimensional. Arrays are multi-dimensional. Accessing members of matrices same as arrays, right? You don't have to worry about this. So I'm getting some messages from office. So what we will do is we will end this session now. Tomorrow we will cover exhaustively. Okay, and tomorrow we'll start the session by 4:30 sharp. Okay, any questions so far? Rajesh, Deepak. Dwarak, are you there? Dwarak, and who else? The other guy is any questions? Murali, any questions? Okay, since you don't have any questions as of now, right? I'm going to wrap up the session now. We will circle back tomorrow sharp by 4:30. Okay. Meanwhile, we'll share the video to you all. It's a very simple one, but still, if you understand the OR programming from the ground up, side by side, right, wherever it is required, I'll compare with Python also. It will help you to recollect whatever I covered as part of Python also, as part of this session. And then we will jump into packages specific to OR, like a dplyr OR, and we have something called data.table. Right, these packages are very much helpful in terms of performing the complex data manipulation, data analysis. You can perform with dplyr and data.table. These two packages are important and popular packages in Python, because using data.table you can read the complex or huge volume of data in a matter of seconds. Okay, in a matter of seconds. Supposing your data file size is 1 GB, if you want to read it using data.table package, it will take just 3 to 4 seconds. But when you use read.csv, the conventionally people use read.csv. Okay, so you don't have to use read.csv for everything. If you use read.csv, the read time will be very slow. Hence we use data.table. And we will look at the data visualization also. I'll try to cover the data visualization also, but functions will cover it tomorrow. Okay, how to define anonymous function like lambda function in OR, and what is lazy evaluation. Using function, I will demonstrate that. In Scala also we have something called currying function. Currying function is nothing but the lazy evaluation. Okay, you don't have to pass all the arguments to a function. Whatever the number of arguments you specified it, when you invoke a function, you have to specify the values for all the corresponding arguments which you used it in your function. But when it comes to lazy evaluation, you don't have to pass the value for all the arguments. Okay, we'll see that one also. What is lazy evaluation and constructor, right? So what is constructor? All the things we'll see tomorrow. And followed by the function, we'll jump into the dplyr packages. Look here, and the first class function also, right? How to assign a function to a variable. That is possible in OR also, okay? And factor, right? And we will see what is factor type and ordered factor, all the things we will see tomorrow, right? And followed by this, we will jump into dplyr tomorrow itself, okay? And next weekend, I think so, right? Given your experience, yeah, we will see the loops. Obviously, we'll see the control flow and the loops also, okay? And nothing dplyr, if I complete it, next one is data.table and visualization. If I completed one session, the next weekend we are all set to start the machine learning part, okay? Machine learning part, I would suggest you don't miss out any session. If you miss out any session, you're gone. Fine. Any questions so far? The other guys, they dropped off, it seems. Fine. Since you don't have any questions, I'm going to wrap up the session now. We'll share the video, and to what we will do is tomorrow 4:30 we'll start, okay, evening.